We are back, and the college football season rolls on. Brandon's team didn't play this week. I wish my team didn't play this week, but we had a good weekend of college football. There were a lot of exciting games. We have two segments today, guys, or really just one segment. I'm going to call it two segments, Brandon. We're going to have Pick Six to start the show, and then at the end, we're going to have some announcements, and then let myself cry the show off because Auburn is absolute garbage, Brandon. I hope that's okay with you. So we're going with Pick Six, and Zach is just going to have a breakdown at the end of the show. So that's our two segments today, guys. So we're going to have a full show today. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Oh, we're going to start so we had some changes. So we covered the Cincinnati-Tulsa game in our Pick Six preview episode that we recorded on Wednesday. Well, the next day, Cincinnati gets canceled, so me and Brandon picked the game to replace it. It was the UCF Memphis game. We decided to keep it in the AAC. We figured the AAC deserves some respect. We get to cover one of their games. So we're going to actually start with that game, recap it. We made our picks, posted them on social media, and Brandon thinks it doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
I told him I was going to add it to Pick Six. He picked wrong. He went with the UCF Black Knights. Well, they did not win, so we'll get into that. Memphis escaped with the 50-49 win, Brandon. How in the world did UCF give this game away again?
I don't know, Zach, because UCF was like a 98% chance to win at like 90. Yeah, it was 98.3 in the fourth quarter.
Just to make it worse, at 5:05 when they were up 30 when they were up 49-37 with 5 minutes left in the game, Brandon, it was a 99.7.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand why they want to break my heart. I don't understand why Zach wants to bully me on the podcast because I don't know. I just thought Pick Six was a whole different thing. Maybe not. I don't know. So maybe I am 30. What is it? What am I? 31-14 according to you? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I believe so. Let's see. Hang on. Yeah, 31-14.
Yeah, no. For all the Brandon writers out there, for everyone who wants my happiness, I'm really 31-12. So that's not quite as bad.
The only reason you don't want to count them is because both of the games we added, you lost.
Well, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm cursed. We talked about this on Saturday. I have no idea why I'm cursed. But, that's beside the point. We'll get back to that another day, I guess, because, you're just going to keep reflecting on the record, whatever. What I will say is that both of these quarterbacks, incredible games, right?
Yeah, they're both, as you would say, they're both really, really good. I think they combined for over 1,500 yards of offense. Both of them had over 700 yards of offense. We had 75 first downs, 99 total points, Brandon, and they combined to go 8 for 10 on fourth downs. Are we seriously going for fourth down that much?
I guess so. I have no idea. This game was bananas. This was one of those games where it's in the middle of the afternoon. I decided, you know what, I'm going to get a quick nap in before this Alabama-Georgia game. UCF has a nice lead. What do I have to lose? And I woke up and it was I think it was 49-44 when I woke up. And I was like, uh-oh, this isn't looking very good. And then Memphis scored on an 85-yard drive. So I don't know.
That's a real tough look for you. I to be fair, I did turn it off. I watched the Ole Miss Arkansas game instead after it got out of hand because I was like, of course we're going to add this stupid game with this stupid Memphis team who can't win a game they're supposed to win. But Brandon, a second straight week for UCF blowing a lead. They were up 23-5 against Tulsa last week and ended up losing that game. And just looking at what happened, I really think it's just a combination of their offensive scheme, Brandon, and just lack of run game production. So I know that sounds crazy, but there's no way when you have that big of a lead, Dylan Gabriel should still have 50 attempts.
Right. Yeah,
you have to run the ball a little bit just to take some time off the clock.
Yeah.
Because every incompletion stops the clock. They like to throw the ball to the outside. Every time a wide receiver goes out of bounds, it stops the clock. And that just leaves more time on the clock for teams to make that comeback. And then the run game production is a huge factor, Brandon, because I don't think they can chew the clock and move the chains by running the ball. Yes, I know they had almost 200 yards rushing this game. I know someone's going to say that, but that was on almost 50 attempts, and nobody on that offense averaged over 4.5 yards per carry.
Right.
And they're inflated due to big runs too. I mean, McCraw, who was one of their leading rusher, had a 24-yard explosive run, and on his other 16 carries, only averaged 3 yards per carry. If you do the math, that's not getting you a first down if he's running at his average. And then you add that, Brandon, to the 100 penalty yards that they had. This has been a theme for UCF, and when you're facing a team like Memphis, if you keep giving them chances to go down the field on horrible penalties, they're going to beat you 9 times out of 10 at least. And like you said, I know this is how you feel. I mean, I don't think UCF is a bad team, Brandon. I just think they have to learn how to win these games, because these close games are going to cost them in the long run. I mean, do you think Cincinnati, if you give them 100 yards of penalty yards and you can't run the ball, that you're going to beat a team like Cincinnati?
No, I mean, absolutely not. It's both of these teams, by the way, have to figure out what a defense is, because they don't know. They have no idea.
Well, to be fair, I mean, UCF had a defense in 2017, but I don't think Memphis has ever known what a defense is.
No.
But like you said, man, Brady White, spectacular in the comeback. I mean, 36 second-half points, Brandon, for the Memphis Tigers.
Yeah.
That is amazing. 480 passing, 6 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and no turnovers. His ability to protect the ball is why Memphis was able to pull themselves out of the hole. And his ability to fight off the blitzes of UCF was huge. When he was blitzed, Brandon, he was 6 for 9, 68 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. He played incredibly. I mean, and Dylan Gabriel played well, too. I mean, he had a better passing percentage. He had 120 more yards passing. He was missing 1 touchdown. So, I mean, both of these quarterbacks played an incredible game. I mean, the running game lacked on both sides. I mean, I guess Memphis, Clark from Memphis had a decent game. I'm not gonna. I mean, he had nearly 5 yards a carry. That's nice. So
yeah.
I don't know. These teams' defense, it should be what I mean. They should even have like the offensive linemen like sitting in on the defensive meetings this weekend, just so everyone on the team understands what a defense is.
I mean, for Memphis, though, I mean, you had Quindell Johnson, Rodney Owens that seemed to be all over the field. They combined for 26 tackles between the two of them. And Brandon, in one of our preview episodes, I talked about how this Memphis defensive line was one of the, I guess, weakest in the AAC and in the country in total. They somehow came away with 3 sacks, which is huge for a defensive line where we didn't think they were going to make any impact. So in a big game like this, for them to come through with just 3 sacks is great. And I think overall right now, UCF just has to find out how to win. Memphis, it's like you said, has to find some sort of defensive presence. But UCF, Brandon, falls to 1-2. They head back to Orlando next week to host the Tulane Green Waves, while Memphis moves to 2-1 and faces Temple next week before their huge matchup in 2 weeks against number 8 Cincinnati in probably really one of the AAC deciding games of the 2020 season. But we're going to move on here. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this game. If you caught our game day, we kind of gave our initial opinions on it. Number 14 BYU beats Houston 43-26 in another big comeback, Brandon. I mean, Houston had a 12-point lead in the third quarter, and BYU scored 28 unanswered from the 53-second mark of the third quarter until the 140 mark in the fourth quarter. So what did you see in this game?
I mean, they could have just scored twice and the game would have been over. They didn't have to. I mean, they were just showing out with those last 2 scores, those last 2 touchdowns. That was just like nail in the coffin. We talked about it Saturday. Zach Wilson, it looks great.
Elite.
He looks really good. I'm not going to say elite because he does play for BYU and he was playing against Memphis. It's not like he was, this wasn't like an SEC football game.
You're acting like BYU hasn't turned out some really good quarterbacks.
They have in the past, but they've also been in a conference in the past.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Thank you. But I mean, Zach Wilson. That's not to take anything away from him. You know, he played a great game against Houston. 400 yards passing. I mean, on the dot. 4 touchdowns, 9 carries for 40 yards. I mean, he was the team's leading rusher. So I mean, he just put this offense on his shoulders and won this football game. Is what happened. And Houston just didn't show up in the second half, and this is what happens when you decide you only want to play one half of football.
Especially against a BYU team that I think is really good. You can't do that. I mean, like you said, Zach Wilson was the storyline of the game. He's already garnering Heisman attention. He had an even better game this weekend. Brandon, on passes 20-plus yards down the field, he was 4 for 5, 170, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's great.
The kid's got an arm on him. Like, Brandon, for me, he looks confident, he looks accurate, and he's calm and consistent under pressure. The moment was never too big for him in a big comeback. And he's just showing that he can put up this consistent performance week in and week out. And listen, there's a primetime matchup coming up in about a month against Boise State on the road, on the blue turf. And Brandon, if there's ever a chance to have a Heisman moment, I feel like that Boise State game is his chance.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, if he has a chance, that's it.
Yeah. And Clayton Tune, Brandon, I know I talked a lot about him on our preview episode about how I didn't really believe in him. I thought he played a really good game. I just want to say that. I want to give him his credit. I mean, over 300 yards passing, 3 total touchdowns, and passes 10 to 20 yards downfield, he was elite. 11 for 14, 200 yards and a touchdown. But when the BYU defense could get pressure on Tune, his production slowed. And I think that was the key to this BYU defense shutting down Houston late. There was their blitz to make Tune uncomfortable, which really just got the whole offense out of rhythm. And it just all kind of fell apart after that, Brandon. It seemed like this Houston offense was held together by a string. In the second half, BYU cut it and the floodgates were opened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. This was an uncharacteristic game by Tune. He hasn't looked like this season. so you weren't. I don't think you were unjustified in your statements on the preview episode.
No, and also this BYU defense has looked legit. We covered the game against Navy, shut down Navy. They shut down this Houston offense in the second half, and they had 3 sacks, Brandon, 10 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hurries in this game, and there really isn't a star, but everyone just seems to do their job, play in and play out, which is the recipe for success. I mean, they're like the no-name defense of college football right now. There's nobody you could say, hey, it's going to be a future NFL star, but they're out here really making an impact on the game. They're making big plays, but there's not that NFL prospect that we can look to and say, oh, he's the leader of this defense.
Right. No, you're right.
But, guys, if you want to hear more about this game, go check out our Game Day special on YouTube right now. But BYU moves to 5-0, Brandon, and now hosts a sneaky Texas State team next weekend. While Houston, they're going to travel to face a Navy team that BYU massacred the first week of the season. So that hopefully Houston can get back on track there. But we're going to the upset of the weekend, Brandon. And listen, I want to start this one by calling out Brandon here. I know everyone's like, huh? You're going to call out Brandon? Well, listen, I know he's going to come for me. He's going to come for my soul, everything I believe in. But I also want to remind you, you had UNC winning this game 48-14, and you have been just as critical of Florida State as I have, so I don't want you to say a single word to me about that. And I don't think a single soul saw this one coming, especially the way Florida State did this last night. But guys, number 5 UNC goes down in Tallahassee 31-28 to Florida State. Brandon, how did the Seminoles pull this one off?
I don't know. I really don't know. You're
like, huh?
Yeah, I mean, because I get it. They played Jordan Travis this weekend. But he didn't play well. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 191 yards. He passed for less than 50%. Their leading rusher had 109 total yards on 12 carries. I don't know. I have no idea how they won this football game, Zach.
Well, okay, so let me say this. Okay, You can look at the stats if you want to, but you had to have watched this game. I know the Alabama-Georgia game was on.
Yeah, I didn't watch this game, by the way.
I did. I watched more of this game than I did the Alabama-Georgia game, especially in the second half when, we'll get to that game in a little bit. But, I mean, it doesn't make sense if you didn't watch the game because Florida State, Brandon, lost the first down battle. They gained less offensive yards. They had more penalties for more yards. They lost the time of possession battle. Really and truly, Brandon, the Seminoles played an outstanding 2 quarters of football, and the time left in the game didn't yield for North Carolina to get the ball one last time to make the play to win the game.
Yeah.
Jordan Travis, listen, I know he didn't do well from the air, but his ground game, man, really unlocked the Seminoles offense for me. You mentioned his passing stats. He also had 107 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And yes, he wasn't accurate, but he only turned it over once, Brandon, and his legs kept multiple drives alive, which allowed them to put points on the board early and build that lead. And that was really the key for this upset. And listen, he's the quarterback of the future for the Seminoles. I'm just going to say that. He is going to, if he improves on his passing accuracy and just a few fundamental things in the passing game, this kid could be special, Brandon. And I know you're not super high on Jordan Travis. And you know what? I'll let you take the first shot because I know it's coming. Sam Howell, his performance, go ahead and take it away, Brandon.
He didn't even play a bad game, Zach. I mean,
okay. I'm just making sure that because I know the narrative had already started from other people that it was all on Sam Howell that they lost this game.
I mean, he passed for almost 400 yards in this game. That's okay. We have to stop doing that, by the way. Like, people do that all the time, and I've done it in the past, and it's ridiculous. Don't put the blame on a quarterback if you didn't watch the game. If you didn't watch the game and it wasn't the quarterback's fault, or even if you did watch the game, you don't know about if you don't know how to watch a football game, if you don't know what's going on in that game, don't put it on the quarterback. Because when you put it on the quarterback, you let everyone else get away without doing their job. And I mean, Sam Howell played a good game. I know people do that with Miles Brennan in the first game this season. When LSU played Mississippi State, people wanted to put that on Miles Brennan, who passed for over 400 yards. Sam Howell had 374 yards passing. He averaged 10 yards a pass, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And his QBR was 34.9. How do you have a 34.9 QBR with all those stats, Zach?
I mean, so he was very inefficient in the first half, Brandon. His interception was taken back for a touchdown, which really put the game out of reach. And it was tipped at the line, intercepted by a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
And
we saw a lot of that this weekend, by the way. That seems like a common thing. Either that or like quarterbacks throwing into the back of their offensive linemen's heads.
It doesn't make any sense.
All time.
I don't understand how that happens. But Brandon, his wide receivers and running backs dropped a combined 6 passes.
Okay.
This game. And Brandon, this is going to drive you crazy. I know you didn't watch the game. 2 drops were on 3rd and 4th down on the final drive where UNC was in the Florida State red zone.
That's wild.
Daz Newsome ran a curl route in the middle of the field. No one was 5 yards from him, hit him right in the hands, and he just dropped it.
I mean,
then
he looked like Kenny Pickett this weekend.
Oh, it was bad. And then Javonte Williams ran out to the flat on 4th down, hit him in the hands, Brandon, perfectly. There wasn't a person within 15 yards of him. He might have scored to win the game. Hit him in his hands. When he turned, he just dropped it.
Right.
I mean, they failed him when he needed it most. And listen, UNC, I'm putting this on the play caller too. They have to trust Howell, Brandon, to stretch the field because he is elite in that area of his game. Brandon, when they allowed him to throw 20-plus yards down the field, he was 6 for 10, 186, and 3 touchdowns.
Right.
Why are you making him dink and dunk when he has an arm and the accuracy deep down the field to do that?
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
And it all came in the second half. I mean, he was hitting wide receivers left and right down the field, and everyone's like, oh, well, look at UNC coming back. It's like, well, they finally let Sam Howell go back there and start throwing the ball, really. It doesn't – and, Brandon, the offensive line is going to cost UNC a chance to compete for anything this year. This offensive line is just dreadful. It is bad. It is whatever word you want to use for it. I mean, they are going to struggle against every single elite front seven they face. Marvin Wilson ate some like their UNC offensive lineman with a picture of Marvin Wilson on their wall, saying that they're going to get him back one day in the future. He abused and bullied them. He took their lunch money all game.
Right.
And Brandon, and when he got under pressure, Howell only completed 30% of his passes.
That's insane.
And that is partly on Howell. I want to say that you have to be better under pressure. Escape the pocket, find somebody downfield, use your feet to make plays down the field when the pocket collapses. But this offensive line is the weakest unit UNC has on this team. They allowed 4 sacks, 4 quarterback pressures, 8 tackles for losses. I know they're young, but this whole they have zero experience thing is really getting old. And it's each week as they play, we're expecting to see some improvement. And I really think this unit might be regressing, Brandon. I mean, they look worse last night than they did against Syracuse in week 1.
They do.
And finally, Brandon, the defense. It was nothing but disappointment last night. I mean, especially in the first half. Brandon, we talked about Chaz Surratt, potential first-round pick at linebacker. He played his worst game of his UNC career last night. He graded out as the worst defender in the game by Pro Football Focus. 33 was the grade that Pro Football Focus thought they could give him.
33? That's, I mean, I didn't think it. I know Sam Howell had a 34.9 QBR. 33 is tough.
That's really bad. That is. He had, Brandon, for the entire game, he had 3 tackles.
Yeah, bad.
Listen, the defense was undisciplined, unfocused, lacked any intensity that they played with through the first 3 games of the season. They allowed 400 total yards of offense, Brandon, to Florida State.
Yeah.
The same Florida State team who lost to Georgia Tech, who got beat 73-7 this weekend.
Look, okay, but to be fair, that was against Clemson.
I don't care. UNC thinks they're just as good as Clemson.
They're wrong. They're very wrong.
1,000% they are wrong.
Well, you kind of thought they were almost as good as Clemson.
No, I didn't think they were as good as Clemson. I said they get there, but they're going to lose to Clemson. Listen, I'm going to say it. This is a problem moving forward in terms of the potential of this Tar Heels team. They were finally exposed as the frauds that Brandon said they were, and I'm on that bandwagon. They are not as good as everyone thought they were, and I think they could lose next week.
Yeah.
And listen, if they played Virginia Tech down the line with a healthy Hendon Hooker, they would lose by double digits, Brandon.
Look, and I know we have to talk about it. Still frauds.
Yeah, that's next. So why don't we go there? But guys, North Carolina, they dropped to 3-1, and Brandon, they host number 23 North Carolina State next weekend.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be tough.
And Florida State finally gets on the board with an ACC win. They head to Louisville to face the god awful Louisville Cardinals. So maybe, Brandon, just maybe things are looking up down there in Tallahassee.
Yeah, well. You kind of look, I know that a lot of people there are a lot of people out there that don't like Florida State, but you kind of got to hope that something's going to turn for them, right?
Oh no, I want them to be good, but they've been bad. I mean,
well, the thing is, they used to be juggernauts. People used to just hate them, but now it's like, well, that's kind of sad. Like you just want them to get a win.
So it's like, oh man, that's like my little brother. Like, just when you turn it on easy and like let your little brother beat you at Madden.
Well, it's like how you kind of want Vandy to win when they're not playing against your team.
That's true. That's true. I always root for Vandy. We all have hopes and dreams, but guys, we get to Boston College at number 23 Virginia Tech, in which the Hokies, I was going to say pulled away, but They beat down the Boston College Eagles 40-14. Brandon, you had Boston College. What happened to your beloved Boston College Eagles?
Well, what happened is Phil Dracovic, he had the Jameis Winston ratio this week, and he threw 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and Hendon Hooker turned into a running back because he had literally more carries than he did passes this game. and he ran for more yards than he threw for this weekend, and he had 2 more touchdowns on the ground than he did through the air. So that's what happened. They ran into Hendon Hooker, who I guess BC probably doesn't have like a ton of film on, if I had to guess, because he played last season, but he hasn't really played a whole lot this season, and so they didn't really know what to expect, and they just got it. They got it bad this weekend. It was tough. It was tough to watch. I hated it.
Hey, the turnover bug didn't help. I mean, guys, the turnovers absolutely made this game look less close than it was. I mean, Virginia Tech did not turn the ball over. Boston College had 5 turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, the time of possession was almost even. Total yards were very similar, like 30 yards off, or 25 yards off from each other. Like Virginia Tech had, 26 more yards than BC. And first downs, I mean, BC had more first downs than Virginia Tech. But turnovers, man.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, like you said, Hendon Hooker, he looked spectacular, though. Regardless of how he did it, he looked really good. I mean, and if he was a starter from week 1 and was healthy, they'd probably be undefeated right now. That's how good I think this Virginia Tech team is. I mean, 111 yards passing, a passing touchdown, 164 on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns. He was dynamic, explosive. He protected the ball. And Brandon, he graded out as a top 5 quarterback this weekend by Pro Football Focus at a 91.1. And I think this performance really solidifies the fact that he is a top 5 quarterback in the ACC. And really and truly, I mean, the way Malik Cunningham's been playing, he might be the best dual threat quarterback in the entire conference.
I mean, to be fair, they were playing Boston College, Zach. It's not like they were playing the world's greatest defense this weekend. I mean, Jordan Travis is also a really good mobile quarterback. He just didn't play against Boston College.
That's fair. I mean, but when Hendon Hooker got inserted in the game last week, Virginia Tech almost beat North Carolina.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And when Jordan Travis, well, you know what?
That's true.
I got someone else to say.
That's true. Hey, there you go. But listen, Phil Jerkovich, I mean, he continued to play well, Brandon, but made one too many mistakes. And the blitz seemed to bother him. I mean, he only completed 55% of his passes for 150 and an interception when they brought blitzes. And Virginia Tech just seemed to blitz constantly, man. They blitzed on almost 50% of his dropbacks.
Yeah, they did.
So I think they could tell it was getting to him. And a lack of downfield passing, Brandon, finally cost the Eagles a game. And it surprised me because the Hokies are shorthanded on the back end of that defense. So why not throw it downfield? Well, on passes 20-plus yards down the field, Jerkovich went 2 for 8 for 70 yards.
Right.
He has to be able to stretch defenses better. It opens up the underneath game where he seems to thrive, and that's where both of his touchdowns came. That's where a lot of his yards came, was underneath that Hokies coverage. And I really just want to see more from Boston College. I think they're a really good team, but Brandon, I think you have to give up on the Virginia Tech as a fraud narrative that you're trying to start.
I'm not going to. They are.
But guys, I mean, the story of the game was, like Brandon said, was turnovers. All of the 5 turnovers, Brandon, that Boston College had, Virginia Tech turned those into 20 points.
Right.
That's the game. That's why the game looks like a beatdown, even though it was relatively close. I mean, it started off the first drive, Boston College turned the ball over. So can't do that and beat a top 25 conference team. Boston College falls to 3-2, guys. They host a Georgia Tech team who may or may not exist after their game with Clemson this past weekend. We will update you guys on them. And Virginia Tech moves to 3-1 and travels to face Wake Forest next weekend. We got 2 last games here to cover, guys. We have Pitt at number 13, Miami. Miami pulled out the 31-19 win, but this game frustrated me. Let me tell you, Brandon. A healthy Pitt team would have destroyed the Hurricanes, and I think you could tell Miami suffered a small Clemson hangover. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 interceptions by King were kind of indicative of that. Yeah, and Kenny Pickett, he's obviously better than Joey Yellen, but Yellen played a decent game. I mean, he only had 1 touchdown, but that's not awful. Pitt fell short when it came to the rush game. I mean, their leading rusher had 23 yards, Zach.
Yeah. Well, that's been a storyline, all season?
Yeah.
To say the least. And I think it finally came back to bite them. Yeah, like you already know. But I mean, you look at Yellen. I think, like you said, he did good. No turnovers, which is huge for a freshman on the road. I think he has a bright future. But Brandon, I think Pickett has just been one of the more underrated players of the year. And he was leading the country in passing yards, Brandon, and you take that away.
Well, yeah,
And,
he didn't travel the team.
yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything. I mean, yeah, I mean, he was hurt, and it is what it is. But I mean, Jordan Addison, I like him on the offensive side of the ball. But outside of Jordan Addison, I don't think there's much to build off of.
Right.
Addison's the only capable wide receiver. There's no capable running back. And Brandon, this wide receiving unit had 4 more drops yesterday, which keeps them in the lead for the wide receiving unit with the most drops this season.
That's true. I mean, they got to figure something out there.
But Addison, 8 catches, 147, over 18 yards per catch. He was elite. And on the other side of the ball, that's where I want to focus, Brandon. For me, De'Aaron King, yes, he got the win for Miami, but he continued his mediocre play for the second straight week. I mean, only 51% completion percentage, 222 passing, 4 touchdowns. That's great. But 2 more interceptions. And somehow, Brandon, he was the leading rusher with 32 yards rushing, but he graded out at a 46.7 for Pro Football Focus this weekend. And under pressure, he graded out at 27, Brandon. And he did not complete a pass when the Pitt Panthers got pressure on him.
Right.
That's the thing I'm worried about, Brandon. I know you were a little bit higher on Miami than I was. King showed the same problem at Houston, Brandon. He would set the world on fire consistently, but then his cold streaks would only last 2 to 3 games.
Yeah.
And I just think that's always kept him out of that elite rank. It was like, okay, he might have won the Heisman at Houston, but then he went through a stretch of games where it was like, is he even the same player? Did he get off the bus? I mean, I just don't know if it's if once his confidence wavers, everything falls apart, or exactly what it is, Brandon. But I think that's going to hold Miami back.
No, it definitely will. I mean, he is going to be he's going to be the one to carry this team. I mean, unfortunately, we thought that maybe Cameron Harris had what it took to have like an efficient run game. Apparently not. De'Aaron King led the team in rushing with 32 yards this weekend.
What happened to that run game, Brandon? 2 straight weeks, it has been atrocious. It's been abysmal. I mean, 2.6 yards per carry, and their longest rush was a 22-yard, 1 explosion, and the rest were all under 15 yards.
And don't even let Cameron Harris get near that 2.6. He averaged 2 yards a carry on 12 touches.
12 carries, man. And he was the best running back in the country for the first 3 weeks of the season.
And one of his rushes was for 14 yards. So that means for 11 other rushes, he ran for 10 yards.
Oh,
that's awful.
Do the math, guys. That is not even a yard to carry.
Yeah. So
that's horrible. And this kid was explosive. And we talked about this kid maybe being right there behind Travis Etienne in the ACC.
He's not. Surprised.
No. And Jalen Knighton, you're supposed to be the Robin to Cameron Harris's Batman. 7 carries for 25 yards. That's all you can muster for me.
Right.
And he's not as physical between the tackles, Brandon, but I think he has the ability to be explosive and dynamic off the edge, and he's been missing for 2 weeks now. And listen, I know someone's going to say it, Brandon. I wasn't sure if you were going to be the one or it was going to be someone listening. What you could argue, hey, it was just the Hurricanes running into 2 elite run defenses in Pitt and Clemson. But the Hurricanes told me they were an elite team, right? They said they were a top 10, top 5 team in the country. And then you're going to shrink in big games and say, oh, man, well, you put the difficulty up too hard, so how do you expect us to produce? Well, elite teams produce. I mean, we're about to get into another player in this next game, Najee Harris, who ran for over 100 yards on the number 1 run defense in the country.
Right.
I think that was the whole – I think the whole narrative on this Miami team has shifted, Brandon. It went from okay, they're good, and then they dominate Louisville. It's like, all right, well they're really good, and then for some reason after they beat Florida State, everyone said, oh well, they're elite now. Well, I don't know if any of those wins are looking weaker and weaker as the weeks go on.
Yeah,
and do you think this is just a case of crowning Miami too soon? Do you think it is the case of just two elite run defenses, or do you think it's just this Miami team just isn't as good as we thought they were?
I mean, I know what I thought. I thought that Louisville was good, and then they went out and destroyed Louisville. And so ever since then, I've been like, oh yeah, Miami's good. They had, they had the quarterback finally. They had the swagger. I mean, and it looked like they had the full package, but turns out Louisville is just really bad, and Miami is a good team. They're not a great team.
Yeah, I don't know if Louisville's even a good team right now, to be completely honest with you, Brandon. But but I've read a little bit on Kenny Pickett, still up in the air, Brandon. I think this Pitt team can beat some teams down the stretch that we're not expecting once Kenny Pickett comes back. But I think Yellen is a good quarterback. I think he can lead them to some wins. But I don't know about you, Brandon. I think this Pitt team is gonna have to have him back before they can make any significant moves.
Okay, yeah.
But listen, Pitt falls to 500 for the 2020 season. They go into a huge matchup against number 3 Notre Dame next weekend, Brandon. That is a big one. And Miami moves to 4-1 to host Virginia next weekend. Well, we got the game of the year to wrap this show up, guys. It was the game of the year for at least 2 quarters until Alabama decided to stop playing with their dinner and finish off the Bulldogs. And Nick Saban, he did coach. He, I guess, returned from his false positive COVID quarantine, while the Georgia Bulldogs, Brandon, I think they wish they were in COVID quarantine instead of Bryant-Denny last night.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be in Bryant-Denny last night. Alabama really turned it on in the second, starting in the second quarter and just on for the rest of the game. I mean, Mac Jones looks incredible. Like, he looks like maybe a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
Listen, he looks elite. I mean, he looks like the second best quarterback in the country right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, Trevor Lawrence is the better of the two, but
yes,
Mac Jones, I mean, after last season, when Mac Jones, we knew, we said that he played well last season, but people were critical of him. He didn't play in the big games last season, I guess, and so people were like, "Oh, his stats are inflated." He played against maybe the best defense in the country last night and dropped 417 yards and 4 touchdowns on him.
And the interception really wasn't even his fault. It was like a batted duck ball from the offensive line giving up pressure.
And it was like the first play of the game too. So after that, he turned it on. Yeah.
Yeah, so after the first play of the game, guys, he went 24 for 31, 4 touchdowns for 417. I mean, listen, he was averaging over 13 yards of completion, Brandon. I mean, this kid is showing the ability that he has the ability to be, I think, an elite prospect at the next level, Brandon. I think he's a legit NFL prospect at the quarterback position. And Brandon, when Georgia did not blitz him, he ate them alive. 83% completion percentage, 295 and 3 touchdowns when Georgia did not bring an extra defender. And this made Georgia's defense have to bring blitzes. Well, when they didn't get to him, he just found the wide open receiver that set in the empty zone from the extra defender Georgia had to bring. If you can't get pressure on Mac Jones when you blitz, it's going to be a problem because you're going to have to make him uncomfortable and blitz him. And here we are. I mean, you look at the 2 interceptions that he had, pick sixes against Auburn last year. Auburn got pressure on him, forced him into a bad decision. Well, if this Georgia defensive line and defense couldn't get pressure, it is going to be a long season in the SEC for anyone who faces Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, and I think he didn't do it alone, guys. Let me be honest with y'all. I think his weapons may not be rivaled by anyone in the country. I mean, this wide receiving unit, Brandon, consists of some grown men. I mean, Devontae Smith, 11 catches, 162 touchdowns. Waddle, over 160 yards, a touchdown, and averaged 27 yards per touch, Brandon. And then you had John Mechie, who got a big touchdown that really opened up the game for the Crimson Tide offense.
Yeah, for sure.
And you combine that all with a stacked running game with Najee Harris, and Najee had over 150 yards rushing, a touchdown. And Brandon, I get that he averaged 4.9 yards, about 5 yards per carry, but that is outstanding for against the Georgia defense that was allowing 30 yards rushing per game coming into this game.
No, I mean, it absolutely is, and that's the reason why he's probably the second best running back in college football.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would like to see him do more in the passing, which is why I think you got to put Etienne ahead of him. But Brandon, real quick, I mean, Stetson Bennett, listen, he had a good run. I think he played outstanding in his first few games, but after halftime, I think the moment got way, way too big for him, and it got out of hand real fast for this kid.
It did. Absolutely did.
18 for 40. 3 interceptions. And Brandon, you said you watched this game instead of the UNC game. On that third pick, when he rolled out of the pocket, have you figured out who he was throwing to?
Nope, not even a little bit. I have no idea.
I don't think there was a wide receiver within 15 yards of that pass. I really don't.
No.
He saw red and threw it to a red jersey, and he forgot that they were not playing in Athens and threw it to the wrong team. That is bad. I mean, Brandon, that might have been worse than any of the interceptions Bo Nix threw all weekend.
Right.
That's tough. But I mean, guys, Georgia, I still think they're good. But Brandon, right now, honestly, you're looking at what's coming up for Georgia, what's coming up for Alabama. Do you see a team in the SEC that can realistically put up a fight against Bama, or do you think they're just a lock for the playoffs right now?
I think they're a lock. I don't know. Personally, I think they're a lock.
I think I got to agree with you, man. That team is just so good. But guys, Georgia 3-1, heading to Lexington next week. Or no, I think they get a bye week. My bad. They get a bye week, but they're heading to Lexington in 2 weeks to take on the Kentucky Wildcats, and what I'm sure will be an outstanding game for Georgia. Nice rebound game. And Brandon, if things couldn't get any worse for the Tennessee Volunteers after this weekend, they have Alabama visiting next week for a 2:30 CBS game, and what I would imagine is going to be a beatdown after what we saw this past weekend. What happened to the poor Tennessee Volunteers and the beatdown at the hands of Kentucky.
Right. Look, that's bad.
It was tough, but guys, that is a wrap on this episode. We kept it a little bit short tonight, but listen, we will be back this week with a preview episode. Me and Brady got to work out some details, but we're gonna also try to fit in a Big Ten preview. It is coming back this week. We have Big Ten football for the first time. Brandon, Minnesota, Michigan this weekend. I don't think I've been more excited for Big Ten football in my life.
I haven't either, man. This is, it's the prodigal son. We're getting it. We're getting it this weekend. I can't wait.
And I don't know about y'all. November is coming up too. I need Pac-12 after dark because I am so upset after the Alabama game last night that there was no football on after that game.
Yeah,
that should not have been it was like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not tired, but it's just Sports Center on everything. But anyway, guys, social media, Instagram at @_Bluebloods, Twitter at @_Bluebloods, Facebook at the Bluebloods Pod. If you enjoyed our college game day special from the Blue Bloods, make sure to check that out on YouTube, Facebook, and or Twitter. We're going to bring it back. More announcements on that coming soon. Some more special guests, new layout, new graphics, all that good stuff. You can find the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to subscribe, rate, like the podcast wherever you may listen. Check out our website, thebluebloodspod.com. New article coming soon. But for right now, guys, we are out.